My name's Natalie and this is my story.
When did your passion for football begin?
So it's always been, football was always huge in my household. There was never an age that I got into it. I had an older brother who was a Tottenham fan at the time, grew up on a council estate in northwest London. So football was just a massive thing in our community. All the children from the estate would get together and play football in the pen, as we used to call it. And it was just like a massive mix of cultures and ages and boys and girls all coming together. And I just fitted in really well with the sort of kids that were around. They never really looked at us differently for being girls playing football. So when we were playing football downstairs in the estate, it was just about 20 kids at a time coming together. You always had two captains, but there's always someone playing football. So the love sort of grew from there. In my house, the FA Cup was always a massive thing. So we'd have all our neighbours coming into my house and watching whatever final was on. And even if it was mutual teams, my dad's a Chelsea fan, my mum's a Millwall fan, my brother's Tottenham, and I'm Arsenal. So we all kind of went our own rival routes. And I chose Arsenal because I watched us play in the FA Cup, one of those finals. A boy on my estate was a massive Arsenal fan, so he used to always try and persuade me. And then I think it was about 93 that I decided formally to become an Arsenal fan. I remember running downstairs into the estate and announcing it to everyone and being picked up by the kid, and he literally swung me around, and I've never looked back since. So when I was in primary school, I went to primary school in Westminster, and we played football every day with the boys, me and one girl called Laura in particular. We were probably two of the best players, and we actually went from primary school and ended up playing football together in the midfield together until we were about 14, 15 years old. So yeah, primary school I absolutely loved, just because at that age I don't think anybody ever considers like gender to be different, and as long as you play football you're always kind of one of the boys. Laura's mum is the one that took me to Highbury for the first time. They had an Arsenal membership, so she took me along to Highbury for a couple of times. First game I saw was Arsenal United, and Dennis Bergkamp scored. In primary school, we were actually given a project to write to someone famous, and I chose Bruce Rioch, who had just come in as interim manager for George Graham at the time. George Graham lost his job, I think it was for like fraud or something. So I wrote a letter to Bruce Rioch and was amazed when Arsenal actually replied and sent me back a signed photo of Arsenal. Do you want me to read you the letter? So this is the letter in its original presentation, which was stuck on the wall in my classroom. So Hazel class, George Eliot School in NW8, and this was on the 10th of January 1996. And it says, "Dear Bruce Rioch, hello, my name is Natalie Rogers and I'm an Arsenal fan from George Eliot School. I have supported Arsenal for 3 years now, and I think they're the best football team ever. And I think you have been one of their best managers. I hope you're getting on well with Arsenal. I love playing football myself, and I think more girls should. Do you think you'll be Arsenal's future manager? I think Arsenal are doing excellently in the Premier League table. Could you please tell Arsenal that I said try not to get injured? Most people in my class support Arsenal, including my friend Vanessa. I had been to one match and one match only, which was Arsenal against Manchester United. I think Arsenal played great, and Dennis Bergkamp scored a brilliant goal against Peter Schmeichel." Tons of spelling errors in that name. "I think Arsenal are great. I hope you're getting on well, and I know you weren't very happy when you lost against Wimbledon. I'm sorry to hear you lost. Who do you enjoy managing the most, Arsenal or Bolton? Could you please send me a signed photo of Arsenal if possible, and I'd be really grateful if you can write back and answer any of my questions. Yours sincerely, Natalie Rogers."
How did football impact your teenage years?
So when I left primary school, going into secondary school was a bit more difficult. My mum wanted me to go to an all-girls school so that I could excel and stand out in sports. And I couldn't get into any because there was none in my catchment area. We didn't go to church, so I couldn't get into a better school. So I ended up staying at home for 3 months and started the school that my brother went to, which was Hampstead in Cricklewood. Mum didn't necessarily want me to go there, but it was kind of the only option at the time. So I started late, which made me really introverted and shy and a bit insecure going into a massive school so late. I started playing football with the boys there, but it was definitely a lot less comfortable, I would say. So yeah, I found secondary school really hard. I didn't enjoy it. But the only release for me was I was playing football regularly outside of school. I used to play football every summer and every weekend in Maida Vale, a place called Paddington Rec. Me and my friend Laura got scouted by a guy that was there. He asked us to play for a team called Wembley Mill Hill when we were about 13, so about year 8. And then we had someone else try and sign us for QPR, but we decided to go to Mill Hill. They had a player called Rachel Yankee there at the time, who is a few years older. She actually went to the same school as me, but her career was taken off and she eventually became one of the most iconic female footballers in the sort of women's English game. Wembley Mill Hill were really good. We won almost all of the tournaments that we turned up to. Our biggest competitor was a team called Enfield. They were good as well. So every season was a battle between them and us, and they were just a bit better than us. But yeah, I won a lot of trophies with Mill Hill growing up. This is one of my favourite trophies. This is one of the first ones I won. I was probably about maybe not 8 or 9 years old, and my brother, it was a Chelsea football camp that was being held in Paddington Rec, the place I used to go to play football, and it was full of boys, and I was the only girl that was playing, and I got Player of the Week. I do feel that there's a sense of sympathy with the only girl that was playing. I was a good footballer, so I took it. So yeah, so I loved PE, and I always felt like I was chosen to sort of showcase, in PE lessons when they ask you to like demonstrate. So I was always picked to demonstrate, and I always felt it was really strong. Came to my GCSEs, and the head of PE told me not to take PE because it was a class full of boys. So I ended up doing something like music, which I've got absolutely no interest in. So I was really, looking back, I just think it was awful that I was ever put off playing like sports because the class was full of boys, and you expected your teachers to kind of encourage you and motivate you to stay in football and excel at what you're good at. And I just found my school didn't at all support me playing football. When I was 14 years old, I got asked to go for trials for England women. Received a letter, and I remember taking it in to show my PE teacher at the time, and she just didn't care, to be honest with you. It was very much dismissed. So as much as I love football and knew how much it was important to me, I never got any support from anybody in my school, just because I don't think they ever took women seriously when it came to playing football. That's my letter from Hope Powell, who was coach at the time. So off the back of sort of feeling slightly rejected from school teachers and stuff, I also noticed when women, I believe it was Fulham ladies that were one of the first teams in the UK to start getting paid to play the sport. And then when Fulham men's team were relegated, they cut all the wages of the female footballers. It was in 2000 that this article was written by a female sports journalist, which criticised women's football, basically criticised women's football. And bearing in mind I wasn't getting sports at school, and then I was going home and reading articles which were against the game. I ended up writing a letter into the Evening Standard when I was 13 years old, which says women's football is an inspiration to us. I'd like to comment on the article by Kate Battersby about women's football. In brackets, the title, as you can see, was "Frankly, my dears, I just don't give a damn." That was on the 26th of April. Women's football, this is me, women's football publicly has finally started to look up, and the last thing it needs is a female sports writer commentating on how she doesn't give a damn. For someone who is uninterested in the game, she certainly had an awful lot to say on the subject. A women's football team turning professional in Britain is a huge boost for all the girls who have an ambition of playing in the future. It gives us an incentive to carry on training hard and performing to the best of our ability. I'm currently playing for Wembley Mill Hill under-15s team. All of my teammates were inspired and encouraged by the fact that Fulham ladies are now a professional team, something that has been a long time coming from our point of view. So you can see, like, I felt really strong about trying to support the game from sort of the year 2000, and it's just amazing now to see that women are getting paid and getting the sort of props and publicity and fans attending games. It's just an amazing turnaround in actually quite a short period of time. going from these days when we had female sports journalists even criticising our sport. So shortly after I received my letter to attend trials for England women, I was playing in a football tournament, much like the ones that I say that I won my trophies in, because we were in them all the time, like all summer. I was playing against Arsenal, were watching, I remember that. And I remember twisting my knee, and I just knew something had gone. I've never had an injury before. I was 16 at the time. My England trials were in 2 weeks. And my knee went. I went off the pitch, and because I was one of the stronger players, my manager just said rest, and he put me back on 2 or 3 times, I think, until the referee was like, you need to stop playing. And then I went to A&E that night, and they told me that I'd ruptured my ACL. It was just devastating. I don't carry like trauma from thinking of it back in the day, but in hindsight, I realised what a massive opportunity I missed out on. And my manager Ian came back from the trial, because my friend Laura that I went to primary school with and spent all my years growing up playing football with, she went for a trial as well, and he came back and said he thinks I would have got through based on the player that I was. So I was left-footed, which was quite unique at the time as well, and a creative player, and he said that's exactly what they were looking for. So it's kind of devastating. After I did my first ACL, obviously when you do a bad knee injury, and on the NHS it takes you so long to get the operation, to get it fixed, had it reconstructed, and then a few years later I went back into playing 12-a-side football, and I ruptured my other ACL. So it just felt like it was time to stop playing football. So when I was 20, I had to stop. That knee, it took years again to get that knee fixed. So sadly, I had to stop playing when I was really young due to ACL injuries. And it's kind of interesting watching this women's England team now. I think it was the World Cup last year. So many players were out with ACL injuries. So there's a massive issue in terms of needing to do more research and to figure out why so many women are struggling with ACL injuries. Is it our physiques different? Is the game different? I'm not sure, but there's not much being done, I don't think. But yeah, it's interesting to know how many women are receiving ACL injuries. So once I stopped playing football, I looked at going abroad to coach football. A lot of my friends were doing, it was like sort of gap year time. So a lot of my friends went to Camp America, which just wasn't that appealing to me, because I figured it was kind of very similar to the UK, the culture. I wanted to try something completely different. So I ended up just going on Google back in the day, and then searching football coaching abroad. And an opportunity in Africa come up in Ghana with a company called Gap Sports Abroad, who actually have an academy out there as well, for where they scout the best players in Ghana, and they all go to this academy, and they've all actually gone on to do amazing things, whether it's scholarships in the US. Some of them play for Ghana international team now. So I went to Ghana, I stayed out there for 3 months, and I coached a young boys team who are all about 14, 13 years old, maybe younger actually. 3 months out there, just every day, getting on to Trotro, going to my club, and it was just the nicest thing I've ever done. Complete culture shock at that age as well, but it honestly teaches you to appreciate everything you have back home. There was honestly nothing negative I could say about my experience being out in Ghana. It was just an amazing experience, and I'd recommend everyone to go and put themselves out of their comfort zone, and to coach football, or to go to a third world country and see how other people live, just to make you appreciate what you have back here.
How is football involved in your life now?
So I went on the Arsenal season ticket waiting list about 12 years ago, and only I think 5 years ago I got my ticket. Took 12 years of waiting, and then so now I go regularly to all the games. Obviously very expensive to be an Arsenal fan, or any football fan these days. So I go there. I've got 2 season tickets. I go with my friend every week, and it's more of a social thing as well. I also remember I take my daughter sometimes, and when she comes, it's quite an intimidating atmosphere. I took her to a Wolves game last season. I think she was quite overwhelmed by the amount of sort of older generation men that go, that kind of give you a bit of a look if you are new, so-called, to the ground. And there's definitely that going as a woman as well, you sense a bit of tension. I've been there with friends before that we've had derogatory comments shouted at us, even from our own fans. So it is quite intimidating. But now that I go regularly, I know everybody around me and the people that sit next to me sort of week in, week out. So it's kind of become my second home. So a couple of seasons ago, I was encouraged by friends and fellow fans to set up a YouTube channel to discuss my thoughts on Arsenal games and to sort of season predictions, my thoughts on games after and before the match. So that took off and it went really well on Twitter as well as Facebook. So if anyone's watching, they could follow me on that chat's cool. But yeah, it's been fun. It's just difficult, again, like I said, with time when you're going to games and then having to analyse games once you've been there already. It's a lot to do. So just a couple of videos. The only thing that I find difficult is I wish I supported more of the women's game. So the Emirates is selling out tickets to watch like Arsenal in the Champions League and the Premier League, but I don't follow them anywhere near as much as, one, I should, and two, as I follow the men's team. I think it's just because I've grown up for so many years watching the men and fallen in love with that team, having the time and effort and following it on TV and live games, to be able to follow two teams just seems a bit too much. But I'm going to focus this year on trying to watch more and get behind the women's team that I sort of wanted to be when I was younger. And to think that I used to play football with like Farah Williams, I went to school with Rachel Yankee, so it's all so close to home that I definitely feel a need and a responsibility to try and support the game more. I really hope that any young girls watching can be inspired by my story and what could have been, and to feel comfortable going to football games and to enjoy it with their families and their community, and to understand that football really does bring people together. It's a passion, and I felt really lucky that when I was younger that I had a passion to follow something that I really loved. It kept me out of trouble and it gave me something to look forward to in life. And the way women's football is heading, I think there's a huge future in it. I think there's huge money in it. So I really hope girls follow their dreams and realise that football can be a career for them.